give it a couple more minutes, see if we can get some stragglers coming in, then we'll start out.
Y'all see the Northern Lights last night? And if so, were you able to get photographs?
Oh,
Didn't know about it.
Yeah, they were here. We Are Brevard and those other Facebook sites have been posting pictures early this morning. And they were fairly strong, about early 10:30, 11 o'clock.
wow.
And they were mostly red and pink rather than green. Didn't know there was any secret to anybody with an iPhone as to how to take pictures of the Northern Lights. I guess you just hold it and hope for the best.
Yeah, I always have trouble when I try to take a picture like the full moon. It's like never. All I get is this glob of light. Yeah, I guess hundreds of thousands of miles is too much to focus.
You think?
I have
All right,
a phone for that, but it's really thick.
I think they call that the Hubble.
Yeah.
There's some great pictures on Facebook from Transylvania County residents. If you haven't seen it today.
And I think the Northern Lights are expected to be out tonight and Sunday night, and then maybe they go away. I'm not sure, but I think that's what I read.
Yeah. 7 starting at 10 o'clock from what I read.
All right, let's get this show on the road. How's everyone doing this morning?
Good.
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 It's already May. Hey,
Yep.
time's flying.
Yeah.
Well, thanks everybody for coming. Got some new products to talk about today. We'll get to that. Did we have any guests today? I think everybody's on the list. Let's see everybody. Welcome all the members. We'll introduce our steering committee. Is Matt on here? I didn't see Matt. Okay.
I don't see Matt.
Hopefully he'll be dragging in a little bit later. Matt Canizio, David Day.
We're here.
Terry Maros.
Morning.
Ed Sheeran. I don't see
Hello, everybody.
Oh, there he is. Morning, Ed. Jan Sparks.
Here. Hi.
I'm George Wagner and Bob Wilkerson. Bob's sneaking through. I don't see him. So this is a steering committee. Our job is basically to try to guide the group to the direction that fits everybody's wants and desires. So if you have some wants and desires, please let us know so we can work on getting them done. Right now, we are folks are trying to find a new location to have our in-person meetings. Once we get a location set, we will then move forward on that and get everybody back to seeing our lovely faces in person.
We'd love to have suggestions, George. So far, we're kind of the churches are dragging their feet. So if anybody has any ideas, let us know.
So, yeah, please, if you know some place that might be good, I'd let one of the steering committee members know, and we'll move forward to checking it out. And if you have some ideas for presentations that you want to see, or even if you want to do a presentation, please let us know. We're more than happy to let somebody else do the presentations. But if you just want to hear something new about some particular topic, please pass it along. We always look for good ideas. So today we're going to talk about the event that Apple just had on the 7th, on Tuesday, the Let Loose event, and talk about the new iPad Air, iPad Pro, new accessories, and some software they've released. First thing, iPad Air. Basically, the iPad Air is using the M2 chip. They have 11 and 13-inch models, starting at $599, $799. The couple really important things: they've relocated the camera to the long side of the iPad, which is very handy because people are using more in that orientation. FaceTime and Zoom. Most of the time, you have it on the side when you hooked up to a keyboard. It's in that orientation. So for the people that were doing the video conferencing, it was a little weird having to look kind of off to the side when you were talking to somebody. That is one of the things they have done. If you haven't played with the iPads or even the phones for that matter, they have a new thing called Center Stage, also on the computers when you're doing FaceTime, that will keep you centered to the screen no matter where you are with the camera. So if you move off to the side, the camera will track you and move with you. If somebody else comes into frame, it will kind of zoom back a little bit so you're both in frame. It's pretty useful and very cool technology. They basically have, because the camera has a much higher resolution than is used in video conferencing, they have some flexibility in doing those kind of things. So they've added new AI capabilities to allow for programs to do some really cool things. We'll talk about that in a little bit. The M2 chip has more coarse neural engine than the M1 did. So it's going to be much better at those type of things. They've incorporated the faster Wi-Fi. They have 5G cellular support. They support the new Apple Pencil Pro, which I'll be talking about in a minute. And they have it in blue, purple, starlight, and space gray. So I love the blue and purple are the normal colors, but starlight and space gray, they can't just say white and black. But these are very nice machines, very powerful machines. Pretty good price point on them. They've also released the iPad Pro. iPad Pro, they jumped from the M2 to the M4 chip, skipping over the M3 chip. It has a lot of power for the neural energy, and that's one of the reasons they did it, was for the AI functionality. Again, we talk about that a little bit as well. It is 5.1 millimeters thick. It is very thin. They basically touted it as the thinnest product Apple has made. 11 and 13-inch models, $999 and $1199 for those. It uses a new technology, a tandem OLED Ultra Retina HDR. It's basically two screens put together to get them very, very tight, very clear, crisp screen. It's a very, very nice screen. The big problem with having color accuracy is you lose a lot of brightness, and that's one thing that this screen it has. They say up to 1,000 nits, which is the brightness scale for the HDR, and up to 1,600 for the XHDR level. So it's really going to be useful for people who are doing video on it, because it has the color correction, the color accuracy, and the brightness that don't go hand in hand in most cases. But this model also has the camera on the landscape edge, which is again very useful. It has the new AI functionalities, which we'll talk about in a minute. Also the faster Wi-Fi and 5G support. It will support the new Apple Pencil Pro as well. It's available in the starlight and space gray, or white and black, as we just talked about earlier. It does have an option for the nano glass option. What that does is it removes the glare issue. It puts from matte finish to it. And for people who are working in high sunlight or highlight areas, the glare can be a problem. So it's a nice option to have. They've also, because they've moved the iPad Pro and iPad Air up, the new iPad base entry level model is $349. Uses the A14 chip. It's also 5.1 millimeters thick. It's USB-C.
Oh.
It's a 10.9-inch screen, which is a little bit bigger than the base model. Used to be the 9.6 thing was. Good resolution, 2360 by 1640, so it's a real nice workspace on it. It supports the new Apple's Pencil Pro. Oh, I'm sorry, no, it supports the USB-C pencil, and it also supports the first generation pencil, but you do have to have an adapter for the USB-C connection. It is available in silver, blue, pink, and yellow. So they basically have really bumped up the iPad's power. The iPad Pro is extraordinarily powerful. It came to the point where it is a good desktop replacement if necessary. Terry and I were talking about that before the meeting. With the keyboard, with the trackpad on it, the touch screen, you've got the best of both worlds. But you now got the power to do video editing on an iPad. So it's phenomenal power on that. So I think you're going to see a lot of movement on that. With the operating systems coming together, the new Macs with the M series can run iPad apps. In the back of my head, I'm just waiting for them to have the iPads have the ability to run Mac apps, and that'll kind of complete the circle. I think that might be coming.
Oh,
So they've released now new Apple Pencil Pro. It has some really cool features: the squeeze, barrel roll, haptic feedback, hover option where you just keep it near the screen above something and information pops up. You double tap on the pencil to switch tools. It is now part of the Find My network, which is good for something that is small enough to get lost easily. It does have a magnetic charger and store it on the top of the iPad.
oh,
So it's a redesign of the pencil design. It has a lot of sensors in it that the early ones did not have. So it's anybody who does graphics or art is going to really get a lot out of that.
George, do you know of any way to adjust or modify that hover thing to, if you don't have, I have a pencil, but I don't use it like that. But what I do have is a finger that's not as accurate as it used to be. And sometimes I don't even have to touch the screen and my iPad goes crazy and does things. Is there any way to adjust that hover process? I'm assuming that's what's causing this to trigger.
Yeah, it's the screen actually doesn't respond to touch; it responds to the heat. I don't know if there's an adjustment for that or not. I'll have to look into that. There may be a sense that you might be able to turn that functionality off, since you don't really, if you don't really.
I've never been able to find anything in settings, but I'll keep looking as well.
If you look in the chat, Terry, just put in something in there. You can. Looks like you do have some control over that. The problem with Zoom is when you're in presentation mode, the mouse doesn't show up on my screen, so I got to kind of move it around until I see the screen change. Okay. But yeah, if you look in the chat, he's got some information on that you might find useful. Okay. The new
Thank
Magic
you,
keyboard,
Jerry.
new Magic keyboard for the iPad Pro, available in the 11 and 13 inch design. It is thinner, it is lighter, it has a row of function keys across the top, much more responsive. They've got haptic feedback, aluminum palm rests, and a larger trackpad. For all of the MacBook people, we know how nice it is having that larger trackpad. But it's a nice adaptive, option to make it more of a desktop computer. So the iPads, like I said, they are to the point now they're powerful enough that they can be a replacement. And for a lot of people, they're more than powerful enough. Most of us aren't doing that high-end video editing that they really trick these out for. So they're overkill for a lot of what we do. But then again, Apple's always been good about doing that because they have plans for new things down the road that we might be interested in that will allow the iPad we buy today to work for many years. They also been doing some updates to their software. They've got the update to the Logic Pro for the iPad and for the Mac, Final Cut for the iPad, a new Final Cut camera app, some AI improvements, and then some developer frameworks so that we'll see the new functionality get really moving to new territory because of the third-party developers. The Logic Pro, they basically have a lot of, if you're not familiar with it, basically it's for music, audio editing. They have some really cool stuff for songwriters and producing and mixing new music. The AI-based assistants allow you to have the computer generate a track for a drummer or for a bass player. And it allows you to basically let the computer kind of listen to what you're doing and work with it. They have a thing called a stem splitter, which basically, if you have an audio track that's a mixed track, it will separate out the different parts of that track. So your bass has its own line, drum has its own line, and you can then adjust, turn off and on one instrument. Really cool thing. If you've ever played with music, it's that option is phenomenal. And as a karaoke singer, I can see a real big plus for taking the video or the audio track out, vocals. Final Cut Pro, they have beefed up the iPad's version. The live multicam, which also works with the camera app that we'll talk about in a second, will give you the ability to have up to 4 devices sending video input simultaneously for whatever you're recording, and you switch back and forth. You'll see all 4 inputs simultaneously. They're synced together by as they're being made, so that you'll be able to basically cut back and forth between viewpoints very easily. And you can actually control those devices from Final Cut, even though they are they're external devices, separate devices. They have options for controlling exposure, focus, white balance, and all those. And all that, like I said, is controlled from within the Final Cut on the iPad. It uses preview clips so that you very quickly move things around, and then it will render the full clips once you've got everything done and you're going to the final cut. So not a lot of us are doing that, but I used to do a little bit of video, and it is really cool stuff. But it also shows off the power of these new iPads. We're dealing with video, the high resolution video, and you're talking to somebody who worked on video when a postage stamp sized video at 10 frames per second was impressive. Now we have full screen HDR, high res video that we just do on our phones. So it's come a long way. The Final Cut camera app, basically you can use it standalone, and it gives you some really good capabilities for video capture. You got a lot of controls for the video, that more so than you have in the default camera app. But you can also tie this right into Final Cut through the multi-feed option they've got in Final Cut. But it does have the ability to be a very, very powerful video capture app as well. AI improvements on the M2 Mac, you've got visual lookup, subject with the ability to take something out of an image and move it around. Live text, which if you haven't played with, it's really cool. If you have a picture that has text on it, it recognizes the text. It can then identify an email address, a phone number, an address, a website from the text in that image. That has been really, really handy. If you've ever had somebody send you a Google lookup or a Yelp lookup on a place, and hey, let's have dinner at such and such a place, they send you this picture that has the address and phone number on it, and you're like, okay, well, now I'm still gonna have to type in that address into my map app or have Siri, read it off to Siri or something. Well, now with the live text, you just tap on the address in the picture, it will take you right into your map or phone number, and automatically call it. It's very, very handy. And what's really nice about that is it does this on all your photos. It's not a photo that was taken after this ability was put in. It is retroactive. It takes a look at every picture, and if there's text in it, it recognizes it and lets you, you can copy and paste out of it. Use the identifiers to do emails and such right from that text. It's very, very cool. They've also used AI to help improve photo editing in the Photomator, which basically lets you get a much better image with a lot less effort from you. It will automatically adjust things to make your image better using machine learning. So that's all things that the M2 has improvements on. The M4 has all of those, plus a few others. Isolate objects or subjects in Final Cut Pro, let you scan documents. And one of the really cool things, if you've ever put a piece of paper on the ground and use your iPad or iPhone to take a picture of it, you almost always have a shadow of the iPad or iPhone on the image. This takes it out. It automatically just removes the shadow from the image. And that's one of the benefits of machine learning. And I think Terry just mentioned this as well. iOS 18, which will be coming out in WWDC, is expected to have a lot of new AI functionality. So it's going to take this even further. One of the things that Apple always does is they make their plans on software, and they create the hardware today that can run the plans they have for years down the road. And so right now you've got a very powerful chip that is just beginning to be used. A lot of you remember when the AirPods were released. When the AirPods came out, I think that was around the iPhone 7 or iPhone 8 timeframe. They were able to be used all the way back to the iPhone 5. And I'm not talking about just Bluetooth. I'm talking about they have a chip called the H2 chip, which gives the iPods the ability to know when you turn your head and such, and it will adjust to that. If you take one out of one ear, it puts all the music into the other ear. Those functions were basically because of the H2 chip. The H2 chip was in the iPhone 5, which was released 4 or 5 years before the iPods ever existed in public when they came out. So Apple planned ahead and they put that chip in there, even though they didn't need that chip. They do that a lot. They overpower the devices so that they can do all the things they want to do, and the machine and the devices can handle it. And that's I actually credit Apple a lot for that, because it would be much easier for them not to do that and then kind of force you to have to buy a new phone even more frequently. And they get accused of that a lot because they do a lot with their devices, and it puts a lot of strain on older devices because they just weren't designed. They just didn't have the technology at that time. But I think Apple does a pretty good job of trying to keep this stuff powerful enough to last for a while. More often than not, I think we expect to replace our devices more often than they actually need to be replaced. All right, and the Core ML, which is the machine learning framework that Apple put out for taking advantage of the neural engines on the M series chips, will be updated significantly at WWDC, and this will give developers access to really take advantage of the M4's capability. So it's going to be interesting to see what these developers do. Apple always does some really cool stuff, but it's the third-party people that come out with things that even Apple didn't think about. So I'm excited about that possibility. All right, so that brings us to questions, whether it's about the new devices or anything else. Does anybody have a question?
Anybody that is considering the iPad Pro, how are people making a decision whether to get the 11 or the 13? I'm curious.
I can't speak for myself, David. I do have a client who uses the iPad Pro. She gets the 13-inch simply because she got rid of her laptop and she wants the screen real estate. So, yeah, the decision is based on, replacing a laptop as opposed to any other choice or any other reason. So
I keep hoping Apple is going to do more with iPad OS in terms of multitasking and the window thing. It's usable now where you slide over or split the view or whatever, but it isn't really that convenient. And I was hoping that the justification for the larger one would be, more functionality and screen management, but that doesn't appear to be in the plan right now.
Well, David, that one of the things that I mentioned earlier that I think is in the in the works, how soon I don't know, is the complete merging of the two operating systems.
Right.
If they do that, the windowing technology of the Mac operating system will be on the iOS devices. So I think we'll see a much smoother interface because it's basically the Mac interface. I think that's coming because they're kind of moving towards that, and it would be beneficial for both sides of the equation. The iOS users would benefit from things like the windowing and that technology, and the Mac users will benefit from the increased development. Developers are really focusing more on the mobile platforms, iOS platforms, than they are on the Mac. I think this will help that. It also helps developers because it consolidates their efforts. They don't have to have two development platforms. They develop for one. They're more likely to do it. They're more likely to get new developers that they'll say, "Hey, now I can hit both platforms, much more easily. It makes much better investment of my time and resources. I may actually want to start making my programs on that platform." So I think it's a win-win for everybody if they do. It seems like they go in that direction. That may address that issue pretty well because the Mac operating system is a very elegant windowing operating system. It's been that way forever, so they've got a lot of time in the history for that. if they try to do that and recreate the wheel on the iPad, I don't know if it'll be as quick to get to that point.
Yeah. Well, I never, when I was using a laptop, which was years ago, I gave it up. But when I was using it, I found myself, I didn't use a lot of the multitasking features because my work was not that complex. And so my transition to the iPad was relatively easy and comprehensive. I mean, I can't think of anything early on that I couldn't do with the iPad. Now I'm starting to have a little more time and want to look at some of the additional apps. And I like to have more than one window open, not all the time, but from time to time. And it's hard to go ahead.
You have to keep in mind too that when the iPhones and iPads first came out, the whole thing was one thing at a time.
Yep.
As they've gotten more powerful, got more memory, more storage. Now you've got, hey, I'm bouncing between these 3 or 4 applications all the time. Maybe I want to see them side by side, and they've done that with the slide over and the split screen to some extent, but it's still not the same. And these machines have gotten to the point where they're powerful enough that they can do that, and people that are buying them are kind of used to that kind of functionality. So, yeah, I think it's got to come eventually, one way or the other. I'm thinking that the Mac operating system on an iOS device is coming, since you've already got the other way, the iOS device on the Mac. So I think it's very possible that it's going to be here fairly soon.
It seems to be the Mac operating system seems to favor the use, obviously, of the keyboard. That's where it began. So I guess that would almost dictate the use of a portable keyboard with the iPad for this transition. What do you think? Do you agree?
I think you're already seeing a lot of that for those people who use it that way, and for those who don't, they won't. They probably don't need the windowing features either.
Yeah.
But I do see that what we'll probably end up with is a touchscreen iPad. I'm sorry, a touchscreen MacBook. I mean, because it's going to be a combination of the two. Apple's kind of stayed away from that, but I think there's plans. I was talking with Terry before the meeting, and the Magic Touch Bar they had that changed depending on what app you were in. To me, was a phenomenal thing. Didn't get the reception that I think Apple expected, but as a Star Trek fan for many years, one of the things they did in the computer at Star Trek was if you were security, you walked up to a station, it changed the layout to be your security layout. You went to engineering, you would have the engineering layout. So if you moved to a different area, your station changed to be whatever was necessary for you. And so the Magic Touch Bar kind of was shades of that. And in my head, I'm thinking, okay, replace the keyboard and trackpad with basically an iPad that is dynamically changing to be whatever I need it to be. If I go into a music app, I can get the knobs and the levers. If I go into graphics program, I can get different tools, and it's just dynamic depending on where you are. And it really opened the door for a lot of possibilities. I'm hoping that's still in the works, because that will address a lot of things. When I need a keyboard, it's a keyboard. When I need a touchpad, it's a touchpad. When I need something else, it can be something else.
I think it's interesting how they, with the virtual reality thing, what's it called, Vision Pro, their multitasking now is facilitated by the ability to have multiple screens in one field of view. I think that's going to be an exciting product. I don't want to wear a headset all the time, but boy, they've got some interesting possibilities with that device.
Well, they can never get holographic stuff working.
Oh yeah.
And I've seen some technology years ago that projected. I have actually one that projects the keyboard on flat surface, and it is using the keyboard just by the projected image. By breaking the beam of light, you hear the keys going. And I've seen where they've had something where it projects an image onto a vertical surface. So it's, I mean, it's possible we can see something coming at some point in the near future. And I know there's a lot of people working on that technology. So we may actually finally get back to the point where our phones are getting smaller. They don't need to have the display.
Yeah, yeah.
George, Kenny's got a question.
Ken, go ahead.
Oh, okay. I'm looking for a particular application and recommendations from you all. I used Apple Calendar and I love it, and I keep it in month view, and I only use it on my iMac and my Mac Mini and my MacBook Air. I don't use iPads or anything like that yet. My wife's confiscated all of them. So we got to think computers. I would like to be able to click on a day and add an event. That's easy to do, but I'd also like to be able to click on a day and it would give me the option to add, I'm going to say, a note or a diary entry at the end of a day. I like to summarize what I kind of did that day. Did I go to the store? Did I go to the doctor? Stuff that doesn't get on the calendar because there's no appointment. Is there some app out there that will let me, that'll look like a monthly layout, and you can add notes to it or a diary to it or something like that?
Have you looked at Apple's Journal app?
No, but you talked about it one time and I was going to look it up and didn't. What is that all about?
Basically, it's just a journaling app to help you journal. I haven't used it extensively, so I don't know if it has like a month view or not. But that, by the nature of it, seems like it would be date oriented. That might be something to look at.
Well, does it work for the computer, not the iPad or the phone? I only use my phone to text on and look at Facebook, and I don't have an iPad. Like I say, my wife's confiscated them, so everything has to be iMac.
Terry put a link in there. See if it's the Mac. I thought they released it across all the devices.
Okay.
Here, stop sharing our screen here. We don't need to share it. It's question mark anymore.
Right.
But yeah, I would check into that. I mean, as a roundabout option, you could use a event that is an all-day event, and within the event you have space to put notes.
Yeah.
So that's a possibility. But I check the App Store.
Okay. I actually have done that. I actually thought about doing an event at 10 o'clock every night, and it would be the notes from the rest of the day, but but an all-day event, that would work as well. Now, if I click on this link that Terry just put up, am I going to lose you guys, or do I right-click on it? What happens?
If you click on it, it'll take you you'll still be connected to the Zoom. In fact, it should give you like a thumbnail window while you're out of the app.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
It doesn't look like the journal app is for Mac OS, and I don't see it in my applications.
Now, that being said, which Macs do you have?
I have the MacBook Air running an M1 chip, with a.
Did you check the iPad apps in the store?
No, I didn't see whether to download it that way, but yes, that would certainly work. I can check that out.
Ken, if you've got any of the M series machines, if you go to the App Store, it'll default to the Mac software, which you always would. If they have a Mac version, you generally want to go with that version. But you can go to the iPad apps section, and you can load and run a large percentage of the iPad apps on the M series Macs. So the journal app should be in there. It's an Apple app, so my guess is it is probably designed so it should work on the Mac as well.
Yeah, I looked at that. I'm sorry. I looked at that too. When I had this is a MacBook Air M2, and one of the things that when I went to the App Store, it'll say not tested on the OS X system or whatever, and I stayed away from all of them.
Generally, what that means is it may be stuck in full screen and doesn't support the windowing. So basically, within the window that it runs the app in, it's basically just going to be stuck in that window. You can't go full screen on it. It's going to lack some of the niceties of the Mac operating system. A lot of the things that Dave was talking about, the whole windowing thing, it doesn't understand that because it was written for a device that didn't have that. But not tested doesn't mean you can't run it. It just means you're going to have some things that don't operate quite the way you expect them because they were written for a touch-based operating system that only had one window.
I went to the App Store looking for that. What I'm interested in is that nobody else spoke up. So I figured what I wanted was something that at least one of the 16 people would have, and sounds like
Ken,
an opportunity for a developer.
Ken, I used an app for a while called Day One, which is primarily a journaling app, but they're implementing some integration with AI that's kind of interesting. For example, they just started a thing where you can ask the app, "What have I been reading?" and it'll search back in your entries and tell you the titles of books and articles that you've been reading. So there may be an enhancement to that, or maybe they would take it on as a development idea. But I think you got I mean, that's a good idea that you have a good practice for people. So it could be Day One would take it on. They charge a yearly subscription because they keep all the stuff in one place on their servers. You have an option to keep it locally, but as you know, it can build up pretty fast. So anyway, you might check it out.
Now Ken, for about $100, you can buy the developer's kit and write your own software.
There you go. Yeah, that's what Ken will do. Absolutely. Now that you've only got one house to maintain.
Thank you.
The journal app that Apple put out is not available in the App Store under the iPad, iPhone apps.
They're also rewriting the calendar app, I understand, for 18. And they may have some enhancements there that can help you, Ken.
Any other questions?
I don't have a question. I just saw Adobe had a real issue with Sonoma, and that in some of its applications like Lightroom, Photoshop, Illustrator, most of them, every once in a while we put a blue box around the function that you're working on, and it drove people crazy. Finally, Adobe come up and says, all you need to do is turn off the full keyboard access and accessibilities. And I did, and that got rid of the blue box. So I don't know what happens to the other part of it, but I primarily use Photoshop and Lightroom, and that blue box drove me crazy because once it created it, once it popped up, you couldn't do anything in that portion of the app, and you had to shut it down, start again. Then it'd be working for a while, pop again. But I turned it off, and I don't have that issue anymore. So that's something to just keep in mind if you're about using any Adobe application like Lightroom, Photoshop, Illustrator, any of them, and it's just I guess Adobe's going to fix that one these days because Apple's not going to fix it for them.
I have a question about calendar. Is there a way that you can set a default setting for the alert? Like say you always want an alert the day before, or you don't want an alert at all, or is there a way you can do that globally so you don't have to do it each time you enter?
Yes. If you go into the preferences on the calendar event under alerts, it has the option. So like I'm in right now on the computer for events. Right now it's at 5 minutes before. If I click on it, I can choose from anything from at the time of the event to 2 days before.
Okay.
And for all day events, you have different setting for that.
in the calendar app, you go into preferences and then alerts, and then that,
Yeah.
then you will come up and you can set it.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And then it actually has an option to use these defaults only on this computer, because if you set this, because if you're using an iCloud account, they're synced, the settings apparently sync as well.
Thank you so much.
And the one thing I haven't tried, it just hit me now, is with Siri, I have it create events all the time, but I've never actually asked it to say, with a alert at one day before. So I've tried to see if you control the alerts verbally with Siri, because I use Siri a lot for event creation.
I always tell her what day to make it on. In other words,
No,
I'll
but
say, go ahead.
but the alert, so you have the event on a certain day, but with it, alert
I
me
see.
a day in advance. I don't know if I haven't tried
Right.
that, but that might be a possibility as well.
Mhm.
The thing about Siri is Siri can do so much that I don't know she can do.
The only way to find out is to try it, man.
Yeah.
I'm the same. I'm in the same situation. They have enhanced it enormously. I'm sitting here at the beach house. I love it at the beach, but when I get in bed at night, I got to get out of bed to turn the lights off. And I don't like that. I like to lay in bed just before I snooze and tell Siri turn the lights off, and she does it all.
Yeah, there's somebody make a phone call, hands free, and I'm not in the car, so I don't have my Bluetooth. So I'll say, hey Siri, call so and so on speaker, and so I'll turn the speakerphone on automatically. I don't have to reach the phone. So if the phone is out of my reach, I don't have to go over there and touch the phone. I can use the phone on the other side of the room because the speakerphone is on. So there's a lot of things like that that you don't think about that you can do through Siri that even if you don't have an option to change a setting, you can do it verbally.
Georgia, you know the basic configuration for the new iPad Air and Pro? And, if you upgrade to what would be a good upgrade for, I don't know. What's the basic configurations that you buy?
I believe they are 256. But let me double
above.
check.
Yeah, they go up to 2 terabytes now.
Yeah.
The supersonic nuclear screen, though, is only available on the very largest 2 machines. You got to go to a terabyte to get the micro whatever screen.
Nano texture. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the Dolphins are back. I'm sitting here.
Yeah, the iPad Pros start at 256. The iPad Airs start at 128 for storage.
What's the RAM on it?
I didn't look close at the RAM.
Okay.
I usually don't focus on that because you don't have a choice. So
Yeah,
Sorry.
well, I was just curious.
Let me see if I can get to it. I guess is if the Pro is probably going to have the most, if it has more.
like 6. I think the Pro has 6. I'm not sure.
Oh, looks like it has 8 gigs of RAM on the base model and up to 16 gigs of RAM.
On the Pro?
Expensive machine.
Pro. Yeah. Well, keep in mind that it used to be my recommendation when someone bought a computer was buy as much RAM as you can afford, because that's going to affect your performance. And RAM is always faster than the hard drive, so virtual memory slows you down, and that's not the case anymore. With the new design of the system on a chip with the SSD drives being, basically RAM in and of themselves as far as speed goes. The speed hit for virtual memory is virtually non-existent. So when they had the original MacBooks, the M1s that came out with an 8 and 16 gigs of RAM, and they tested them, and what they found is the difference in performance was negligible, except at very high end, like 4K and 5K video editing, and even then it wasn't that much. So I tell people now, put it all in the storage. 128, 256. By today's standards, that's kind of light. I'd go up. I tell people never buy the base storage. Always go at least one level up, because you've got the new cameras are higher resolution. That means the files are going to be bigger. That means you're going to fill it up faster. They're great cameras. You can take more pictures. You're going to fill up that storage very, very quickly. And you'll hear a lot of kind of implication that the iCloud storage, you've got all this iCloud storage you can use. The iCloud storage doesn't really offset the internal storage. I mean, you can do the optimized photos so they're not as big, but you don't have as much iCloud storage as you have storage on your device as it is. So it doesn't, it's not a replacement. It's great to have, but definitely don't view it as, I'm going to offload things to it. No, you're not. You do have the ability on the new devices to use external storage. So if you do want to offload things, you can do that through an external USB-C hard drive. So there's options there that we didn't have before.
Yeah, I think it's kind of confusing to me, because when I was looking at the new MacBook Pros, people say, well, get all you need is 8 meg of RAM, and I guess I'm too much old school like yours is. I can't believe the 8 meg of RAM would do what I want to do. It's just hard for me to get that in my head.
Yeah, it's the new chip really puts all the old advice on its ear, because the time between instructions going from the processor to the memory to the hard drive to the graphics coprocessor is so fast that it's imperceptible. The difference between the devices, it's just that fast. So yeah, it's a different rules now.
I've got a follow-up. Last meeting, I had mentioned I was having an issue with Spotlight Search because my files were being stored on the cloud and not on my hard drive. And I did talk with the people at MacPaw, which make the Clean My Mac software, which I had been using. And in fact, when you do clean purgeable space on your computer, the whole thing with that is it takes in any files, if you're connected up to your iCloud account, if you've got files on your hard drive, it'll push them all up there and take them off to create more space on your hard drive. So when you run that particular task, then your Spotlight is not going to search properly, because you don't have the files on your hard drive any longer. So if anybody uses that software, that is exactly what happens. So on another, go ahead, George.
Just on the memory question, I just checked. The iPad Air only does 8 gigs.
Okay. Just a sort of funny story. I was helping somebody with their printer. It wasn't working. They were getting an error message. It was an HP printer. So I went on to HP's website, because I couldn't resolve it doing the normal things that I would normally do to try to get a printer to work again, unplugging it, plugging it back in, checking the print heads, etc. I thought it was because they had non-HP cartridges in there. So I put some original cartridges in and still got the same error messages. And there really wasn't a whole lot of detail on the HP website, but I did find the solution. And it was, when I first read it, I kind of stepped back a bit and chuckled. And then as I kept seeing more and more posts from other people saying that it actually worked, I decided to go ahead and try it. And the solution was hold the printer 8 to 10 inches off the surface of whatever and drop it. And I thought, oh my gosh, but I couldn't figure out another solution. So the person was ready to buy a new printer. I said, well, it might as well try this. So sure enough, I took that printer, I held it about 8 or 10 inches off the ground, and I dropped it, and it's working fine. So, but I saw that from numerous posts that when I got off the HP forum, and that was the solution, was to drop the printer, and that reset everything.
Now, you guys may not be as old into the technology as I am, but that is actually the fix for the Lisa.
The old Lisa computers. Yeah.
Yep.
To
The
drop
memory
it.
would work its way loose, and you when you did that, it pushed it back into the socket.
I worked with a guy one time who called a service tech to come work on the computer, and it was the same sort of memory situation where the memory cards were loose. And the tech walked into the room and said, "What's wrong with the computer?" Marvin reached in a drawer and pulled out a dart gun and fired the dart gun at the front of the computer, and it shut down instantly as soon as the dart hit the front of the computer. And the tech said, "Oh, okay." Hey, circling back to calendar for a minute, I found a need to be able to put more. I like to use the monthly view, and I found a need. Pam is really busy nowadays, and so our list of things for each day got too long to be seen. It would always show, 1, 2, 3, and then a few more. It would have a little thing to see more. Well, we didn't like to do that, so I bought an app called Calendar 5 by a company called Readle, Readdle. It's a nice app. It doesn't do a whole lot more than the calendar app, and it reads the calendar database. Okay, and it doesn't touch it, doesn't ruin it. So it kind of rides on top of Apple Calendar, but it offers the ability to have longer spaces in various of the views. And we just found it a convenient workaround. So FYI.
How do you spell that?
Calendar 5. I mean, it's regular calendar space 5. And if you do a Google search, it comes up by Readle, Readdle. And it is on the App Store.
Yeah, I just did a test. I changed that setting about the default, and I chose iCloud rather than on my computer. So it did it on my computer, but it didn't do it on my phone. Is there a delay of syncing it to my phone? I mean, the entry went in there, but not the day before, it just said none. I mean, the alert said none, but on my computer, it said 1 day before.
I mean, from the checkbox that I'm seeing there, it sounds like it's giving you the option to not synchronize or synchronize that across. It may not, so you may have to go into your phone, go into settings, calendar, and do the same thing.
Oh, okay. Okay, that's good. Okay, thank you.
No problem. So, anybody else have any questions?
Hey, this is going to sound like a dumb question, but I have a very old Magic Mouse. It's got crud on it and all that kind of stuff. Still works fine. If I got a new Magic Mouse, would it be better? Does it have better innards, or do I just keep using this and put some Fantastic or something on it and clean it?
Fantastic is fine. Just make sure you spray the rag, not the device, because you don't want the liquid to get into the crevices and cause a problem. The new Magic Mouse, the only real advantage is it has a built-in rechargeable battery as opposed to having to put AA batteries in. But the way it charges is inconvenient because the only space they could really put the charging space, because the top of it's the whole trackpad type thing, is on the bottom. So you can't have it charging while you use it. So like the keyboard, you can plug the keyboard in and use the keyboard while it's charging. The Magic Mouse has to basically charge or be used. You can't do both. So you have to make sure that you charge it when you go to bed at night. You plug it in to charge. Otherwise, in the morning, if it's dead, you have to wait for it to charge up before you use it again. But the mouse itself, from what I've seen, it's the exact same design and functionality of mouse. It's just it has an internal battery rather than the AA's.
I just want to do a quick recommendation. I just got an iPad that has pen capability, and I didn't want to pay for a Apple Pencil. So I tried this ESR stylus pencil from that I got off of Amazon, $18. It doesn't have pressure sensitivity, but it does have angle, and it seems to be working fine. I've been real happy with it. So if you want to try it without having to, buy an actual Apple Pencil, I recommend it.
Cool.
I put the link in the chat.
Okay. Well, I think that's about it for today. Thanks everybody for coming. See you all next month. Same bat time, same bat channel.
Thanks, George.
Thanks, George.
Thanks, Terry.
Thank you. We'll see y'all.
Next time.
Bye.